All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Quality Garden Club's monthly meeting. This is December the 16th, 2020. This is also the 6th day of Hanukkah. I hope everybody is enjoying themselves. And good wishes to all. I hope that everybody here is settled in with their snacks and whatever refreshments you've chosen for yourself for this evening. And here's a heads up on what we're doing tonight. Our agenda is I'll have the opening remarks right now, and then after me, I'll have Carl Shearer, our club's vice president of programming, who will introduce Noel Ramos, who's speaking on growing fruit trees in South Florida. Yum, yum. Noel will take questions and he will give them answers from the audience after his presentation. And afterwards, after that presentation, Carl will be back telling us what we'll be doing next week in the next little while, right? And we'll close up the thing with some closing remarks by me so that you know that it's time for you to go home and be home and turn yourself to other things. Before we go on, we're going to go over a few of the usual routines here. Some people are new, they don't know the details. During this virtual meeting, we make sure that you keep your audio on mute and keep your video cameras off. That way we're not interfering or interrupting anybody accidentally. If by any chance you have a short time lag between the speakers, that's probably our fault, not yours. It's not uncommon. Just be a little patient. We'll fix it. We'll reconnect you as quickly as we can. If you're joining us on Zoom, all right, you can post your questions in that period and your comments by on the chat button, which is located at the bottom of your screen. Recall that you will be chatting with everyone, so keep your comments appropriate and keep them kind, okay? If by any chance you get disconnected, you can rejoin us very simply. Just sign back in just as you did initially. There'll be no problem. You'll come right back in. Excuse me. If you're joining us on Facebook Live, you're going to be coming in through the video, and you can post your questions as a comment on the videos. And we only ask you that you keep that video open so that others can join as well. For the question and answer period, we'll have two moderators to assist the audience. On Zoom, Carl will be assisting and collecting questions submitted by them on Zoom chat. And on Facebook, Mario will be assisting and collecting them on the Facebook Live. I want to remind everybody here that we are recording this meeting, as we have been for the last little while, and we're going to be archiving it on our website. So if you find something in it that you really want to recall, or you missed it somehow, or you came in late, or whatever, or you have to leave early, you can retrieve it on our website. Just go to qualitygardenclub.com and you'll be on your way. Okay? All right. Now that we've gotten those situations covered, let me address the group here for a little while. All right. We have a very simple presentation, but a very important one to my mind, of a Lifetime Membership Award. Only once before have we given a Lifetime Membership Award to any individual, and that was in gratitude for a very generous contribution. But tonight, we want to extend this honor to some people with whom most of our members are very familiar and have been for a long time, namely Chuck Nichols, and Dot and Bob Henley, all right? Well, there they are. Okay, I'm sure they're familiar to most of these people here. Chuck is an original founder of the club, and he still serves on the board, right? And Dot and Bob joined almost immediately thereafter it began. But the point they all have is that they've been enthusiastic and active from the very beginning, and they continue to be so. There's no point in listing the myriad ways in which they have helped this club. That would take the whole meeting, so we might as well just dispense with that. The point we want to make here is that these people have contributed for years. When we notified them, this is what I wrote to them. Your enthusiasm and dedication for the Quality Garden Club has met us for over a decade. EGC could not have developed into the community-minded, fun-loving group that has become without your invaluable contributions and your continuing support for all these years. I am happy beyond compare. I'm truly happy to inform you that the Quality Garden Club Executive Board unanimously approved offering you a lifetime membership in honor of the extraordinary dedication that you have shown. My great regret is that we are not able to have you in person and have this opportunity when we could formally proclaim that to the membership and to all of our friends, our deep appreciation for all your endeavors. And I sign that, Van Gosselin, respectfully, President on behalf of the Equality Garden Club. Chuck, Dot, John Bob, it's a simple certificate, I know, but it's heartfelt. We honor you tonight to remind our members of all the wonderful times we've had, and we'll continue to share with you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your contributions. Excuse me. Besides Santa, COVID-19 vaccinations are finally on the way. But as it is with Santa, we need to be nice to each other to get these things and to be rewarded with our most fervent wishes. So in the coming weeks and indeed months, please wear your masks and enjoy company only with others outdoors and keep about a 6-foot distance. Stay helping, safe helping, please. It's too early to know when we're going to finally be able to get back together for our meetings. We still have everything in advance. We know that. Due to the pandemic, our annual tropical plant fair has been rescheduled again. We have to do it. Carl Shearer, who is the chairman of the Tropical Plant Fair Committee, will give you details about this at the end of Noel's presentation. So stay tuned because there's some good information to hear about this. Last year, to the delight of our members, we held our first members garden tour, and we're planning on doing this again, right? And we hope to do this within a few months. We're currently developing the logistics to be able to do this safely. And once again, stay tuned, We'll give you the details for this. It was delightful. We had over 80 people last year visiting 5 different gardens. Each garden is unique in their own way. And it was just a delight to go and wander around and poke our nose into other people's yards, right? We all continue to miss our camaraderie of our meetings, right? And I miss especially the plant auctions. I really like them a lot. The board is looking into providing a rare and exotic plant auction again this year. We missed it last year. And we're trying to do that in the very near future as well. We're hoping to do this in April, right? But that's what our plan is. But this will probably, we're going to be compelled to have it as a virtual format. So we're figuring out the logistics of that as well. But there'll be some magnificent plants coming up. And it's really, really worth it. Last time we had one, we had well over 100 people in attendance bidding on a variety of plants. And we hope to exceed that this year. For those who have not read the December newsletter, you missed some really good news, right? For this coming year, the board has suspended dues for all active members that were registered in 2020. So if you were a member and active, you were a registered member with us last year, you will not have to pay dues this coming year. All right. We figured that Christmas is a time to share, and we've all had a rough year, so it's time for us to have something good happen to us. All right. You should, if you want, you can check out the December newsletter on our website because we have them all registered there, and you can get the details about that from the website. It's a good idea to check our monthly newsletters because each member gets one, and it's a reliable source of information. We do announce you things in it that we just skip through and others. We don't want to tie up your time, and you can check it out at your leisure. And another good source for all the people who do not get our newsletters, you can also read them on our website. Go to info@equalitygarden.club.com. And we seriously updated, and it's very informative, and you can really find out what's going on with this club. Okay, let's get on with this thing. We're going to go on and look at the presentation that's coming up. I'm going to introduce Carl now, who was our VP of programming. By the way, Carl, this is going to be Carl's last official act as our programming VP. Paul Durbin is taking over that role for this coming year. All right. I will see you again after this presentation and after the Q&A. And let me turn it over to Carl to introduce our speaker.
Great. Thanks, Van. Members, guests, welcome. Tonight we have Noel Ramos. The topic will be the best tropical fruits to grow in South Florida. Noel's enthusiasm for tropical agriculture started while working at his grandfather's mountain coffee farm in Puerto Rico during school breaks from his university studies. Afterward, he relocated to South Florida and has continued growing and fruiting tropical fruits while working mainly in the pharmaceutical industry. During his spare time, he also lectures throughout Florida and out of state about tropical fruits, sustainable agriculture, and green living. He also traveled extensively to botanical gardens, agricultural research stations, and private farms throughout the US, Europe, the Caribbean, and Central America. Currently at his home here in Fort Lauderdale, and we're so lucky to have him right here at our back door, he is growing and fruiting many species of rare tropical fruits that he will talk.
Yes.
Good. There we got you.
Yeah, I've been growing fruit trees and all kinds of tropical edible plants for probably over 30 years down here. And over the years, you try a lot of different fruits, a lot of different vegetables and different things that grow down here. And it's kind of, trial by error with a lot of these, but right now there's a lot of great information. In the beginning, it wasn't as easy to find information about some of these trees, but now they're available, plenty of information and plenty of trees in most places down here. First of all, why grow your own? All right, tropical trees, fruit trees they're beautiful landscape plants and trees. You can grow fruits you can't find anywhere else, or at least better quality fruits. The fruits, you can ripen them properly and they taste better. A lot of times you buy tropical fruits in the grocery stores and they're nowhere near where they should be taste-wise because they're picked just for shipping, basically. It gets you outdoors for fresh air and exercise, which is something that I like to do. It's one of my, especially working from home right now for all these months, my escape is my backyard, and I go out there, during the day a few times and during lunch. And I almost have some type of fruit ready to pick year round. You eat local, you know where it's grown when you buy fruits from down here. Helps to reduce foreign oil usage. We're not shipping fruits from Chile or from California, different places. So being a green person, that's a good one there for sure. They provide shade to reduce energy usage. And like I said, you've got fruit that you can eat. And for the most part, you can grow either organically or with low amounts of fertilizer and pesticides. And I'll talk a little bit about that when we go on. Okay, one of the favorites down here for many years, and it's mangoes. Mangoes have been grown in Florida since probably the late 1880s. And that's something that's, they're one of the few places in the United States where you can actually grow mangoes to perfection. Small parts of California you can also, but they're not nearly as well as we can here. We certainly have the ideal climate in the continental United States, for sure. Mangoes, Mangifera indica, which is the name means, the Latin name is the magnificent fruit of India. Native to India and Southeast Asia, because they're also native to other parts of Asia, different types of mangoes. I mentioned they've been grown in Florida for many, many years, and medium to large, fast growing trees. You've got early, middle, and late season varieties. Some varieties of mangoes you can pick as early as March and April, depending on the year, depending on the climate of the year, or the weather. And there's trees that can fruit almost as late as November, like mid-November, which but they, you can have a pretty long season. Although the vast majority of mangoes are fruiting probably from June through August. Abundant crops that are much easier and better tasting than foreign grown fruit. If you've never tasted a Florida mango, you're really missing out, because a lot of the mangoes that are available in the grocery store, for the most part, are picked unripe. They're just nowhere near where they should be. And many people, once they try Florida mangoes, the ones we can grow down here and ripen correctly, it's just a day and night difference. There's probably about 75 different varieties of mangoes available in local nurseries and in the plant shows. And recently, in the past few years, they're looking for more what they call condo mangoes, or mango trees that are more on the door side, that can be grown in small yards, because one of the problems with the old Florida mangoes was that these trees were huge, big enough that they say with some of the ones like Valencia Pride, they say on a quiet night, you can hear it growing. There are a few issues with mangoes, not a great deal of problems with pests, but there are some becoming more prevalent. But anthracnose is one of the worst ones, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on.
Noel,
That's a fungal problem that can be cured with using a copper spray.
Noel,
Yes.
are you gonna share your screen?
Oh, I'm sorry. Which one are you seeing now?
Nothing.
Oh, you're not seeing anything. Hold on. I don't know what happened there. Hold on. Okay, can you see that screen there?
No.
No.
Okay, I don't know what happened then. We lost the screen here. Hold on. Okay.
Share your screen.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, let me do share screen then. Hold on. Yep. Let me see what happened here. Open. Screen. See that now?
It's
Yes.
coming up.
Yep.
Okay, now you want to
Sorry
start.
about that. I don't know what happened there. Kind of. Okay. You seeing that now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. Anyway, so some of the old Florida mangoes that are available are the Carey, Glen, Duncan, Hayden, and Valencia Pride. And except for Glen and Duncan, most of the other ones tend to be very large trees. I'm talking, they can be, some of these trees, if you don't trim them back, they can be absolute monsters, 40 feet tall. But generally, there's a lot of the new mangoes. You can maintain them at a small shape and keep them manageable for sure. And some of the new varieties, which I'll be talking about, are the Lemon Zest, Sunrise, and Orange Sherbet, among many others. Okay, here's some of the variety that you can see that these are all grown in South Florida, by the way, everything here. And I'll talk about each one of some of these here. Duncan at the top, there's one that I grow in my yard. Duncan is a tree that produces incredibly well in South Florida, got an amazing taste. All of these are fiber-free sweet mangoes, but they all have different tastes. I mean, Duncan is one that it's more like the old Florida mangoes, but then you've got some of the new ones like Sunrise, which have almost like an orange sherbety taste, or orange cream kind of taste. You've got Nam Dak Mai, which is the Thai mangoes. You've got orange sherbet and coconut cream and Graham. Graham is one of the older ones, the old Florida mangoes. You got Sugarloaf, Pickering. Yeah, that's Valencia Pride. Valencia Pride is the one I told you, which is a gigantic tree. Zutec is another one from Southeast Asia. And then Lemon Meringue is also outstanding. Here's Orange Sherbet, which is really, in my opinion, one of the absolute top 5 mangoes that you'll ever want to try. And these trees Orange Sherbet, as well as a lot of the new varieties, were developed by Zill Performance Plants up in Boynton Beach. Zill is a mango grower and grafter, and probably one of the largest producers of grafted mango trees in the United States, if not in the Western Hemisphere. At one point, he was shipping mangoes, as many as 50,000 grafted trees per month, to all parts of the world. So a lot of the mangoes that you buy and eat in the stores, for example, from Peru or from Guatemala or from Puerto Rico, those are all Florida mangoes. But the problem is that those mangoes don't taste, even though they're Florida mangoes, they're grown and picked in an unripe stage, when the places that they're grown, they have to be packed, they have to be refrigerated. And by the time we get them here, they're nowhere near the ones we can grow here because we can tree ripen them. But orange sherbet is one of the ones I highly recommend. Here's one called Pickering. This one almost has a coconutty flavor to it. Outstanding mango, and the tree is almost like a dwarf tree and produces, and a lot of these can grow in a large pot. I'm talking, you would have to keep upsizing them. I always recommend you put them in the ground. But for those that don't have the space, these can fruit easily in a pot. I've got some in 30-gallon pots, but you can grow them. You'll see mangoes in a 3-gallon pot with fruit on them at times, but that's not, something you want to keep at that stage. This is lemon meringue, which is a smaller mango, outstanding taste. These are some of the new super sweet and incredibly complex flavors to these things. You got the pina colada, which is a small tree, more of a dwarf tree, and it does taste, it has that, when they call these names are pretty good. They have coconutty flavor to them and a pineapple coconutty flavor. This is I recommend this, and it's a dwarf tree. Probably my favorite, and usually the one that wins most of the taste contests, is the lemon zest. And when I say lemon, it's not a tart at all. It's got a lemony, sweet lemony mango coconutty taste to them. Absolutely, I think it's my favorite, and I think it's probably, like I said, in most tastings that they do, whether down at Fairchild Tropical Gardens or wherever when people do these, this is always one of the winners. Highly recommended. And you can find these in your local, and some of the nurseries on it, which I'll mention a little bit later. Now, if you want to see mangoes, Fairchild before COVID, Fairchild Tropical Gardens in Miami. If you haven't been there, you got to go. This is one of the outstanding botanical gardens in the United States, if not in the world. They're certainly they're in the top when it comes to any of the tropical botanical gardens. And they have every year, they have a mango festival, and you can see basically hundreds of the varieties. They'll have probably 300 different varieties. And these aren't all the taste. The ones you'll see here, they're more, you've got the mango experts talking about the varieties. You can go and see and ask about any one of these, how to grow them, but you'll see all the sizes, shapes. They all have different seasons. And it's a cool place. And they do have, you can taste mangoes there. They have tastings, but they also sell many different types of mangoes. And for all of those who love mangoes or want to get into mangoes, it's always good to try to taste them first if you can, because not all mangoes agree to all tastes. Some of them, like I said, they're usually different. But this is a cool place to go see. And this festival is usually around mid-July. Down in this is down in Coconut Grove. Okay, this is one just should hit a note with everybody here. They'll take a quick look at that. Who are we? I'm sorry, we're the gardeners. What do we want? All the plants. And where do we put them? We don't know. That's what everybody's problem. You just buy too many trees. So you do have to plan where you're going to put these things, because everybody wants all the trees or all the plants or whatever it is, and you just don't have enough room. Okay, next one I'm going to talk about is Sapote, also known as Níspero in the Spanish community. And this is the chicle plant. This is actually, this was commercialized originally not for the fruit, but for the latex that was collected from the tree bark. And Sapote, also known as naceberry and chico sapote, it's native to Mexico and Central America. And what I was going to mention was the latex was the original main ingredient that was used for chewing gum. It was developed by Thomas Adams, and it's still out there, Adams chewing gum, if you guys remember, or you'll see. It's not available everywhere like it used to be, but this was the original base for chewing gum. And these are large, fast-growing ornamental trees, but have a delicious fruit. They're starting now. There's probably about a dozen different cultivars, because in the beginning, the fruit, like I said, the people kind of ignored the fruit, at least in the States. It wasn't ever sold here. But in places like Mexico, the people have, used the latex for the chewing gum, but they also ate the fruits. And it's only been probably in the last, they've been down here for many, many years, but they've become pretty popular. And you'll even see Sapotillas being sold at places like Whole Foods. Although sadly, they're not to the quality where if you grew your own, because it really makes a difference when you can grow them in your yard. I've seen them. This is a fruit that's got to be tree ripened, and a lot of times the ones you'll see in the stores just don't have the right taste. They're easy to grow, few pests, hurricane resistant, and like I mentioned, they are commercially grown in homesteads. So most of the ones that you'll see if you do see them for sale, they are Florida grown, South Florida grown. The taste is almost like a sweet cinnamon flavored pear. And cultivars, which is there are different varieties that have been developed for South Florida mostly, or Mexico, are the Alano, Molish, Hacia, Silas Wood. There's a new one out there called, I think it's Buttercream. No, I'm sorry, I'll think of it later. But there's a few, there's other ones also. But this is one of my favorites. Very good fruit. And here's how the chicle people go out there and see how it's just similar to what they do with rubber trees. When they slice the trunk and then the sap drips into a container, and then that's used for the chicle base. And it's made a little bit of a comeback because chewing gum bases are now mostly artificial ingredients. You're starting to see more of this. I've seen it in some of the places like Whole Foods, where they sell the chewing gum made from chicle like it used to be, because being that it's not, that's all natural, whereas most of the other chewing gums that are out there are synthetic bases now. Here's how the fruit looks when you cut it open, and it's usually got 1 or 2 seeds, and the fruit can range from the size of a golf ball to the size of almost like a little melon. Some of them are pretty good size, whether it's a 2 to 3 pound fruit. And these things, if they're ripened, perfectly ripened on the tree, are really, really good eating. And they can grow in abundance. I've seen them grow so many fruits that the branches almost break on these. Do very well. They've been grown in South Florida probably for over 100 years, but it's only been in the past, I'd say 30 or 40 years, where more and more people are growing them as the wonderful fresh fruit that they are. They used to be grown a lot. They used to be planted in developments. Like I used to live in Coral Springs, and some of the developers put a tree. I mean, everybody had a Sapote tree in their front yard, and most people didn't even know you could eat the fruit, except me. I used to go take a shopping bag and fill them up. And they're grown and they can be expensive. I've seen them. Generally, they sell from $3 to $5 a pound, but it's mostly all fruit. There's very little. There's, like I said, seed, so it's 95% of the fruit itself is edible. And this is down at Robert is Here Market down in Homestead. And here's different varieties. I took this picture from different varieties that I bought down in Homestead, and they're pretty much, they taste pretty uniform for the most part. There are some that have better taste. I mean, there's some better than others, but most of the Sapotillas have a kind of similar taste to that cinnamon pear kind of taste, and just a unique fruit, and something I recommend. All right, long gone. This is a medium to large size, fast growing tree. It's from Asia. They can be pruned and kept small. Not as sweet as lychee, as some of you may have tried lychee from down here or in your travels, but it is a very delicious fruit, well suited to South Florida conditions. More reliable fruiter than lychee. That's one of the problems. I don't have lychee in my slides here, just because lychee, which is a favorite of a lot of people, a really, really good fruit, one of the main fruits in China. And it used to grow very well in South Florida, but they demand a certain number of chilling hours, otherwise the trees don't fruit. And ever since, we're in the middle of this thing called climate change, which is definitely a real thing, and we're seeing warmer and warmer winters and just don't have enough chilling hours. So that's why I don't have lychee in here, because they rarely fruit. I mean, I haven't seen decent crops on lychee trees down in South Florida for probably 10 years. And that's why I recommend longan. I'll show you pictures of it in a minute. It's commercially grown in Dade County. Beautiful ornamental trees, and cultivars are Bikui, Kohala, Diamond River, and a few other ones. Now, here's what the fruit look like. They grow in large bunches. And this can also be grown and fruited in a pot, but I recommend it. This is another one that should be put in the ground. Here's what the fruit looks like. And they just got 1 seed. And it's just got, like I said, a very, it's hard to describe the taste of it, but this is the ones, you know, when you get a chance, try them. They do sell them in the markets down here during usually July, August. You can find them in places usually that sell more exotic fruit, like the Boys Market up in Delray. And you'll occasionally see them. I've never seen them in Publix, but I have seen them in Whole Foods. And for sure, in any of the Asian markets down here, you'll find longan during the season and sometimes during the off season, because they bring them in from Southeast Asia in different parts. It's even sometimes parts of the Caribbean. They grow in big bunches like this. And I mean, the trees can really load down with fruit. Okay, another one I want to talk about is canistel. Canistel or egg fruit, another one that's been grown for many, many years down in South Florida. Does really well in our climate. Also known as yellow sapote, native to Yucatan, Mexico, and Central America. It's from the same area as the sapodilla, which I mentioned, the same family, the sapotaceous, which is the sapote family of fruits. Fruit is very sweet, nutritious, and filling. It's out of the sapotes, it's probably the easiest to fruit in South Florida. Minimal pest and disease problems. Not widely grown commercially, but you will see them for sale down in Homestead. This is one I haven't seen in the markets up here. Makes a great fall pumpkin pie and makes delicious ice cream. It's really, I mean, I like the fruit fresh also, but it makes really, the best thing for these is to make smoothies and shakes. And you can grow these basically totally organically. They just thrive in our soils and need very, very little, only fertilizer probably when the trees are young. Once they take off, they just keep producing large quantities of fruit, of really good fruit. Cultivars or Bruce, the raw sapote, which is like a smaller version of the canistel. The trees themselves are more dwarf. So if you're looking for more of a dwarf tree of the canistel, look for the raw sapote. And then there's the Fairchild cultivar, and there's one called Trompo. But this is one, like I said, it's if you've got plenty of room, this is one you want to try for sure. And here's like a bunch of them. This would be down in Fairchild when they have the festivals down there. They used to bring them for the display tables, and then you could buy the fruit there. And like I said, for making for desserts and making smoothies or things like that, it's just outstanding and a good choice for us. Here's the Fairchild 2 variety. And Fairchild, if I remember, the tree's a little bit on the smaller side, but outstanding. Okay, here's one big one that I grew in my old house in Coral Springs. All right, next one up is the Anonas, the sugar apples. Some of you may have tried cherimoya. Cherimoya doesn't really grow here, but that's one of the ones you would see in the markets occasionally. They would bring from California. But we can grow, out of all these here, this is guanabana, is the big green one in the lower left-hand corner. And then the other ones, we got an atamoya there, and we've got red and green sugar apples. These are, they call them custard apples, and they taste almost like a vanilla custard is really the taste of these, except for guanabana. But they're small to medium growing trees. They fruit from seed in 2 to 3 years under ideal conditions. Sugar apple, guanabana can be grown from seed. Some of the other ones, you prefer to grow from grafted trees. As I mentioned, pulp tastes like vanilla custard, and they've got lots of hard, shiny black seeds. Main crop is from July to September, and many trees produce a smaller crop. And right now in the wintertime, in between Thanksgiving and Christmas, even into January, you'll get a smaller crop. But definitely, it's a crop for the summertime. And sugar apples and atamoyas, they lose most of their leaves in the wintertime. So they look pretty bad, but they always come back strong as soon as the warm weather starts coming. Probably in March, April, you'll see the trees come back to life, even though they look like half dead during the wintertime. So it's not a great tree for the front of your house, because they do get, like I said, in the wintertime, they get a little raggedy. But boy, and put them in your backyard or somewhere, if you want to, if you got a good spot kind of in the side or in the back, they're very good. The atamoya, there's varieties. Atamoya is one of the varieties. There's Geffner, Priestley, 4826 Page. Sugar apples, which is probably the easiest one to grow down here. You've got Big Red, you've got Kampong Mauve. There's a few other ones out there also. Guanabana or soursop, which has become one of the trendy fruits for with health benefits. A lot of people claim that they cure everything, and it's gotten to the point where even the leaves, which people make teas out of them and stuff for different, I mean, people say, you know, like I said, for different types of medical reasons, they become expensive. I mean, these fruits used to be in the Caribbean very inexpensive, and now they're going for $4 or $5 a pound because they're able to export them. And there's been a lot of hype about these health benefits, which I'm a little bit leery on a lot of them, but they're good to eat. Guanabana's got, it makes a great shake and a great ice cream. And the varieties for Guanabana are Miami and the Cuban fiberless. And there's some new ones now, other new ones. Custard apple, which is another type of Annona, I think I have a picture up coming up on that. There's Fernandez, Sartenaya, San Pablo, and then we've got Rolinias. And I'll show you. This is the regular sugar apple, Annona squamosa. And these are the most common ones in South Florida. These have also been grown in South Florida probably for over 100 years. Most of the ones, and they call them sugar apples or apples, but they have really nothing to do with the apple family. It's just people wanted to come up with a name, a generic name for them when they didn't know what they were. So they just, oh, they must be some kind of apple, but they certainly have no type of taste whatsoever. They're not even closely related or anything to apples. Certainly also a tropical weather fruit. They certainly will not grow anywhere north of probably Palm Beach County is about as, and you know, you may get areas where you'll grow a few here or there, but they're more of a tropical than anything else. Here's how I used to grow them in my property. I had a large property in Coral Springs where I used to grow and actually sell to the markets. And I would sell these 15 years ago. Probably I was selling these things for over $3 a pound. So now they're more like, when you do find them, they're usually $6 or $7 a pound. But really a nice fruit and just unusual taste for most people. They really like these. Super sweet. I mean, about as sweet as cane sugar. Yeah, these are custard apples. The two red ones are custard apples. And then the one yellow one, that's the Rollinia. And Rollinia is native to the Amazon basin down in Brazil, but remarkably grows well here. A little bit cold sensitive, but I've grown some pretty large ones. I'll show you a picture of that. Custard apples are native to Central America and probably the Caribbean. These are called Corazon in Puerto Rico. And we've got just about all the islands have their own name for these. But these are like a raspberry vanilla custard. That's kind of what these taste like. And here's another picture of the red sugar apples, Annona squamosa. And these are all grown in here in Fort Lauderdale and Coral Springs, but they grow fine. And like I said, we don't get enough cold where they're affected down here at all. And they can be grown it's a small tree, can be grown in a corner somewhere. You don't have a lot of space, this is a good choice. And they also will fruit in pots. Here's another one of the red. Beautiful fruit, incredible colors to them, and just as an amazing taste, just the same also. Yeah, this is the same one. This is the custard apple. I'm sorry, the custard apple Severino, the variety. And this is just a little grittier pulp to it, but also I recommend these. And here's how big the Rollinia you can grow down here. That's a couple that I grew down when I had my place in Coral Springs, and these fruits, they can be as big as 3 to 6, 7 pounds. And these taste like lemon meringue pie. And here's how big they get. See, this one's close to 7 pounds. Very unusual looking fruit and easy to, you just kind of break it open and it's got that lemon meringue pulp to it. And one of my favorites also. I mean, I like all of these things, but the Annonas are some of my favorite tasting. Okay, Mame Sapote. Mame Sapote is one of the Cuban fruits they call, really native to Central America and Mexico. And one of the fruits that sustained Cortez as he made his way as a conquistador through Mexico and Central America and kept his conquistadors alive, which is maybe not a great thing considering all the pillaging that they did, but certainly popular fruit in Central America and Mexico, eaten fresh or in shakes and ice cream. Very popular in the Cuban community. You'll see these everywhere in the markets in Miami and most everything in Dade County. And you're starting to see them now. Publix regularly brings them. And I'll show you a picture of them, what the fruit looks like on the outside. Fairly easy to grow in fruit in South Florida, but these do tend to be large trees. There's probably 500 to 600 acres planted in Homestead. And there's two main Florida cultivars, Pantene and Magaña, but there's a lot of new ones now, Abuelo. There's probably another 6 or 7 cultivars. And this is considered, most Cubans consider this their national fruit. And Pantene, for example, that variety was discovered. Somebody planted a seedling down in front of the courthouse. I mean, the original fire station down in Key West. And that tree grew to be large and produce outstanding quality fruit. It was so good that it was basically then was grafted onto trees. And when you make a graft, it's like making a clone of the tree. And they started planting them in Miami, in Homestead, mostly in Homestead area. And it became a commercial crop and very popular. And it's something that's just cool. And the plantain tend to be a smaller fruit, maybe as big as 3/4 of a pound to 2 or 3 pounds, whereas the Magaña, they're football size, and those can reach 7 or 8 pounds. Also very good. These things make, like I said, excellent. I love the shakes, Mame shakes, and I'll show you a picture what it looks like. And they do not tolerate flooding well. Fruit takes 18 to 24 months to mature, but they can get a lot of fruit. So these trees, there's some trees that you have fruit almost year round. There are a few pests, Cuban May beetles and squirrels. Squirrels are pests of just about every fruit grower. So once you start growing fruit trees, you tend to dislike squirrels. What can I tell you? I already mentioned about the 2 varieties. And here's what the fruit looks like outside. It's kind of a scruffy brown texture. I mean, the outside of the fruit. And the way that you know when they're ripe is you make a little scratch at the pointy end. And if you see orange or red, it's ready to pick, it's ready to buy. If you see green, don't buy the fruit because they're going to be rock hard in the stores for the most part. But when you make with the scratch test, if you see a good color in there, like I said, that's when they're ready to pick. And that's the color they should be, or almost, some of them are a lot even deeper red than this. And this is a Magaña, so you can see the size of that thing. It almost looks like a regular NFL football there. But these, the Magañas don't, to me, they don't have as good a taste. But if you can find them, they're still good because sometimes that's the only Mame that's available. And you can see on this tree, you've got a fully mature fruit and you've got smaller fruit. So these smaller ones won't be ready for probably a year and a half later. But you can see it's got all different stages of fruit on the trees. And here's another picture of what they look like. Kind of not the prettiest looking fruit on the outside, but that, you know, the inside, like I said, it's almost like a little custardy vanilla taste to them. And certainly a winner for us if we can, but you do have to have plenty of room. It's a large tree. Here's down at some of the markets in Homestead. This is how they're sold. You see them everywhere. You go down Chrome Avenue. That's one of the, if you guys haven't done a fruit trip, go down Chrome Avenue and down in Homestead, I take it all the way down and you'll see fruit stands. At least this was pre-COVID everywhere. And they'll have a lot of these tropicals, including Mame. And here's the famous batido de Mame. And there you see the fruit. And it's one of my favorites. And you'll see most of the restaurants in Dade County, I'd say the majority of the Cuban restaurants for sure will have this on the menu, batido. And you can also buy the pulp. If you want to try the pulp first, you can also buy the frozen pulp at Publix and a few other stores. You'll see it in the Latin section or in the frozen fruit. Okay, avocados, of course, a favorite down in South Florida for also over 100 years. We grow a much larger. We don't grow the small Hass avocados from California. Most of ours are Guatemalan West Indian types and range anywhere from 3/4 of a pound or half a pound to as big as 6 or 7 pounds. That's how big some of the Florida avocados can get. Medium to large, fast-growing trees do well in our climate soils. Florida fruit It's not as doesn't have the amount of fat of the California type, so it does taste different. But it's something I grew up with, the Caribbean avocados or the Florida avocados, and to me, I like both of them. And there's just different ways. The Florida fruit, they're not usually made into guacamole, although some varieties will make a decent guacamole, but they're mostly made, they'd be eaten fresh, like a slice when you're eating your dinner. And most of the Caribbean, it's very common for people just to cut a slice of the big avocados and you put it to the side. You're eating, when you eat your food, your rice and beans or whatever it is, you have a piece of avocado. Wilson Popenoe, who's one of the early plant agronomists and botanical explorers, once bragged about eating 1,000 avocados, and these would be the larger ones, in one season as he explored for fruits in Central America. And he said he did not gain any weight. But, I'm sure people back then also did a lot of walking, but they are very nutritious and have, the good fat, which is something that, what people are looking for. So it's become very trendy, avocados, and you see them now used in many restaurants have them, and you see them a lot more in the stores. And there's A and B types, which just refers to, how they flower. But the best thing with avocados is don't plant seedlings. Best to always buy a grafted tree. Yes, you can grow them from seed, but the problem is you never know what you're going to get. It could never fruit. It could just always, the odds are that they're going to produce inferior fruit to whatever it is that you tasted. So always look for grafted trees. And we've got many great varieties here. They don't tolerate flooding. Some of the cultivars are Choquette, Simmons, Lula, and there's probably 40 or 50 other varieties available in South Florida of grafted trees. Here's the Brogdon, which is a smaller, dark avocado. Almost tends to look a little bit like the Haas avocado, but it's a smooth surface to it. It's not bumpy like the Haas. Very nice one. These are the Wilson Popenoe variety, which are long. These things can be probably 18 inches long. Very nice tasting also avocado. And here you've got several other ones. My favorite from South Florida one is the Choquette, the one over in the middle top there. You got Downey, you got Blair, you've got, this is Monroe, another one of the old Florida varieties. And you'll find them a lot of times at the rare fruit sales down in some of the groups, and you'll see this at Fairchild Garden, but you'll see them on the sides of the road sometimes, and especially in Dade County. And Publix you sell quite a bit. I do see they do sell Florida avocados during the season down here, but you're seeing more and more from the Dominican Republic just because we've had hurricanes have hurt the Florida avocado growers down here. And also there is now a new disease that's attacking avocados down here, which is, so far we've been spared in Broward County, but it's menacing to the avocado growers down here, and it possibly in the future could cause huge problems for the avocado growers, which tend to be less and less, sadly. But we grow some really good avocados down here, and it'd be a shame if we ever lost them. But for now, it's still safe to grow avocados. And that's about it. There's a 3-pounder. This was a Marcus. They call this one a Marcus pumpkin, is the variety, the cultivar. But like I said, I've seen them as big as 6 pounds. Yeah, this is these are the Florida avocados also here. This was one of the sales down in Miami, Dade County. Okay, bananas. A lot of people have bananas down here, and another one's been grown for many, many years. And the standard one that we grow is one called Cavendish. It's a fast-growing herbaceous plant, easy to grow and fruit in full sun. You don't need a lot of space, but they can, if you don't keep them trimmed back, they keep growing pups, so they can, I can't say take over an area, but if you leave them totally without cleaning up, they can start, taking over an area, but it's easy to clean up. You can, certainly cut everything back and get it, in good shape. Produces in less than 1 year, requires regular irrigation and fertilizer, doesn't tolerate flooding like most fruit trees, so you have to be careful where you plant your trees. You keep grass away from the trunk, especially weed eaters, but this is also for all trees. Weed eaters are probably one of the biggest killers of any kind of trees that they're out there. Once you get those weed eaters around, that they blast around the trunk of a tree, forget it. It could just basically kill them in a short time. With the bananas, like I mentioned, you do have to remove the excess suckers because they start growing little pups on the side. And if you let them go, you can end up having a dozen of these things. And then the plant itself, the main plant, just doesn't grow. But so you have to remove some of the little ones that pop up to give more life to the main tree and get bigger stalks of bananas. Probably over 50 varieties available, but generally there's about a dozen that are more commonly found. Cavendish is the one that I've seen that grows pretty well down here. It's a dwarf variety for sure. You can dwarf Cavendish, which are fairly easy to find. You'll see those get no taller than 5 or 6 feet, and they have a big bunch of bananas. I just picked probably last month a 44-pound bunch of delicious Cavendish, and they're available in many nurseries down here. But Going Bananas in Homestead is probably the best place to find cultivars, and he's got like probably 50, 60 different cultivars of all types, everything from red bananas to plantains to you name it. But there are that many, and there's many that have very different tastes. There's some, just some are totally different from anything you've ever tried. Just to give you an idea of some of the different ones that are actually grown down here. You can grow, these are the Cuban red over to the right, and also on the left there, you'll see Cavendish, you'll see Grand Name, you'll see just a huge variety of them. It's cool, but a lot of them are cold sensitive, the Polynesian varieties, but many grow very well in our climate. And you'll see them everywhere, but one of the problems you see with bananas is you need to fertilize them well, because if you don't, they tend to the fruits stay small, the plants just don't do well, but they are heavy feeders, and that's something you do have to keep on top of. This is the ice cream banana, which is one that it's certainly a unique taste, a very delicious banana. And this is a Nam Wa, which I think is probably this is my favorite. This is from Thailand, excellent, delicious variety. And it does grow down here pretty well. And this is the Huamoa, which is another one. This is a Polynesian variety, also probably brought over from Hawaii in the 1950s to South Florida. It was actually grown commercially at one time down in Homestead. And this is the red, or the Cuban red, or the Jamaican red bananas. Also a unique taste, very, very good. All right, jackfruit. For all those who haven't heard of jackfruit, this is becoming a trendy fruit. This is probably a 30-pound fruit that I got a picture with out in Homestead. Native to India and the Far East, very popular in Brazil and Jamaica. Fast-growing ornamental tree, largest tree fruit. They can grow over 100 pounds. Pruning can keep them under 10 feet, but that's they're fast growers, so you really have to be on top of them to grow them, keep them at 10 feet or under. They taste like pineapple, banana, and juicy fruit gum mix. This is another one that I put in my top 10 fruits. You can now find all kinds of products made, or food products made with jackfruit. You can see there's barbecue jackfruit that's available in even Publix and all kinds of stuff. It's becoming one of the superfoods for the future, I think. The skin does contain latex. You can use olive oil on a knife, and even on your hands when you clean them. And these are available now, pretty common. I see them in Publix almost every year. They sell somewhere for about $1.29 a pound. And just watch videos on them before you clean the fruit. A little more difficult than most things, but absolutely worth it. And they do very well in our climate. And commercially grown in Homestead and a few other areas, even in the west coast of Florida. Few pest problems. Cultivars J31, My One, Lemon Crunch, TMR Red. There's probably 25 varieties of these also. And that's kind of what they look like when you cut open the fruit. And here's this is down in Homestead. And these were kind of pricey at $2.25 a pound. This is a Robert is here fruit stand, but everything's pricey down in his fruit stand. This is down in the Redland. But like I say, he's got here, it tastes like pineapple and vanilla. I never tasted vanilla in them, but I guess maybe he did. This is at a friend of mine's house in Tamarack, growing jackfruit. And they can really become huge producers. I've seen trees like this down in Homestead. And these are older trees, of course, but they can produce huge amounts of fruit, the bigger trees. All right, let's move to papaya, Carica papaya, fast-growing herbaceous plant. There's male, female, and perfect types, produces fruit, and as little as 1 year from seed, high in vitamins and great for digestion. Makes great milkshakes and smoothies, also eaten fresh. Trees should be replanted every 3 to 4 years. They've got one pest, which is the papaya wasp, which is a fruit fly. But I haven't seen many problems with the wasp in a few years, so I'm hoping there seems to be less of those around. Fruits should be bagged, but they can be bagged, I'll put that way, to keep the wasp off of them. But it produces plenty of fruit, easy to grow. And you all have seen these. We can grow them just like this in your backyard here. And this is one that I grew that I grew myself. And you can have fruit for quite a bit of time because they don't all ripen at once. And these are very nutritious, one of the superfoods, easy to grow. People grow these in their front yard, their backyard. One of the things, like I said, they don't like flooding, but and also you have to be careful when you have a papaya tree with a lot of fruit like this in storms, because they can just snap. But there's a way you can put stakes on them. That's what I did with mine during hurricane season. I put stakes on them with rope and keep them fine. And all kinds of varieties. This is another variety that I've seen growing down here. And you've got your Hawaiian papayas and the Caribbean papayas, which tend to be, the Caribbean ones are quite a bit bigger. That's the ones that we grow here for the most part in South Florida. The Hawaiian solo papayas tend to be very small, and they don't, it's a delicious fruit, but they just don't do as well here as the Caribbean papayas. And you see a lot of seeds in the Caribbean papaya, but it depends. I grow some huge ones here that may have a dozen seeds in them. So it's just different varieties. And these are all grown from seed. These aren't grown as grafted trees. This is another one called Golden Tie, and it's got like a purple reddish stem to them. Beautiful yellow fruit. And papaya smoothies, one of the best things. Really good, very nutritious. You mix these, it's good papaya with bananas, and just put them in a blender and makes an outstanding healthy drink. Easy to grow in South Florida for sure. All right, star fruit, large attractive tree. Some of them there are some smaller ones now, native to Malaysia, Southeast Asia, been growing in South Florida also for over 100 years. Produces huge amounts of fruit. I don't know if you've seen these. Some of these trees can grow almost unbelievable amounts. Several crops per year, commercially grown, not as much as it used to be. Sensitive to windy conditions, few pest problems. Cultivars carry Shirkambangan, Fangtung, and here's a star fruit. You've seen them in Publix, but I always find the ones that they sell in the grocery stores on here aren't very good. They pick them green, and they should be picked. They should be tree ripened and look almost this orangey color to them, and they can be very good, nice taste. And they use them in salads, and they use them in punches and all kinds of stuff. Here's what the fruits. This is done and display down in Miami. Actually, I think this was at Fairchild Tropical Garden. They have, they sell the fruits down there, and you can see these. Like I said, Whole Foods occasionally sells them in some of the farmers markets. You'll see them also, and just produce like crazy here. Very little needed nutrition. They barely have to fertilize these, and they just blow out of the ground. I mean, just incredible fruiters down here. All right, jaboticaba. Jaboticaba is a cauliflower's fruit, which means it grows out of the trunk of the tree, doesn't grow on the branches. This is like the national fruit of Brazil. And small, slow-growing tree or bush, native to Brazil, Paraguay, ideal for small areas, does well in containers, similar to a Concord grape, but it's got its own unique taste. And these fruit, after 6 or 7 years, produces multiple crops during the year. Once the trees get big, I've seen people growing these or having crops 8 months of the year. And fruits grow directly from the trunk, as I mentioned, called florets, and mostly planted from seed. But it's best to buy, instead of planting your own from seed, I would recommend to buy trees in nurseries that have a little bit size to them because they are slow growing for the most part. Here's how they can fruit the abundance. They come right off of the trunk. They're related to guavas. And for those of you familiar with guava trees, you can see the trunk. It's got that unique texture to it. And these things can just, and they're just, you eat one after another. Brazilians, I have a friend of mine who grows them commercially in Parkland and grows, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of pounds per season and sells each and every pound $7 to $8 a pound. All the Brazilians just line up to buy these. But that's something that should be grown more. Like I said, easier to grow. Once they get established, they become, and you can grow these close to the house because they don't get big. You can keep them very small and just an impressive tree for sure and a nice fruit. All right, a little bit, I want to talk about tree planting and maintenance for any trees, any of the fruit trees, but even any ornamental, same thing. Don't plant the trees too close. Give them plenty of room if you can, at least 10 feet apart if possible. I mean, unless you're a really good at maintaining and trimming trees, you have to give them room. Carefully plant without damaging the roots. A lot of people buy these trees and grab them by the, instead of holding the pot, they grab them by the trunk, and that can damage roots. Be careful when you, and also when you plant them. It's better, instead of trying to pull it out of the pot, if you see that it's stuck in the pot, it's best to cut the pot, because if you just yank at them, you can damage the roots and that'll hold back growth or stunt the tree forever. New trees should be staked. Probably at least 3 stakes with a little rope. And it's something, once the trees get growing and established, and you remove it probably after 6 months, no more than that. New trees should be watered daily for a couple weeks, especially if you're not planting them during the rainy season. And always don't plant your tree too deep. You want to plant your tree at the same, at ground level, or the same level that it is in the pot. People, you can either plant them too high or too deep. And but you have a choice of the two. I'd rather plant a little bit on the high side, because once the trees settle, then it could be at the right, just at the right place where they should be. But if you plant them deep, remember, every time you plant a tree, once you start growing them, they start sinking a little bit as they settle. So you don't want to plant them at ground level. You want to plant them a little bit above ground level. So as they settle, they'll be at ground level. That's pretty important. And then once they're established, you can water most of these trees twice a week from here on. And some trees like mangoes, once they get established, and most of these trees, you may even have to water again. And even with your sprinklers, you have to be careful with your sprinklers, because some trees like avocados and papayas don't like to be watered all the time. So you may have to actually cut down on your sprinklers or move them to areas that don't get, or plant them in areas that aren't as affected by ground, by sprinklers so much, because that does affect the roots of the tree, and it can cause root rot or other problems. Fertilization. Fertilize new trees monthly for 6 months, every month for 6 months. And then afterwards, once they start getting established, you can go 3 times a year. You fertilize trees, and you put down the fertilizer like you would salt on a hamburger. You don't want to put them in one area or just totally make a circle around them. You spread it out about a few inches away from the trunk. You don't want to put the fertilizer right on the trunk, but you go, let's say 6 inches from the trunk out to where the farthest roots of the tree go, and just sprinkle it out even. And the best overall, there's fruit tree fertilizer that's sold at some of the fruit clubs. But if you can't find any of that, palm fertilizer does a real good job. Palm fertilizer with minor elements will do the job. And also good to trim trees annually if you can. For the most part, especially to keep things like jackfruit and some of the mangoes, you may have to absolutely, we may take with mangoes sometimes twice a year, but they're well worth it. Where to buy trees? A lot of people ask. There's some Rare fruit growing societies down here, the Broward County Rare Fruit and Vegetable Council. They have tree sales, as well as the West Palm Beach Rare Fruit Council. Twice a year, they offer sales in Broward and Palm Beach. And these are really good places. Once you figure out what you want, you go early to the sales, because they do sell these out. It's very popular, and a lot of people are planting more and more trees, especially during COVID. People are learning, hey man, maybe if I can grow more fruit trees and we have something like this again, I don't have to go to the stores often. I can have fresh fruit. So they become pretty popular, and always a big selling item. Excalibur Tropical Fruits, that's a big nursery, probably the biggest tropical fruit nursery in South Florida, or one of the bigger ones. There's probably one other one that may compete with them, Pine Island, which is also mentioned here. Pine Island Fruit Trees, which is in Homestead. Those are the two biggies, Excalibur and Lake Worth, and like I said, Pine Island and Homestead. Spikes Grove in Davie has fruit trees also, pretty decent. I was told about this place called the Wild Flamingo in Davie. They have fruit trees also. And then there's a place on University Drive in Tamarack called Tropic Plants, and they have a pretty good selection of fruit trees. That's a good place, and they'll give you advice. And the great thing about either going to the sales or to go to these nurseries, you can ask questions, and they'll be more than happy to tell you how to plant them, how to grow them, how to do everything. So if you don't remember what I'm telling you here, or you can always look it up on Google also, of course, everybody does, but I always like the advice that the nurseries give. And if you want to see tropical fruit trees in abundance, take a trip down to the Fruit and Spice Park in Homestead. This is probably the most unique park in the United States when it comes to fruit and spice for fruit trees. They have got, it's at least like 40 acres of every type of fruit tree you can imagine. It's there. So you can see how big they get, and you can taste some of the fruits. Any fruits that are on the ground, you can eat. They don't want you to pick the fruits from the trees, but they have tastings, and they have a store in there in the front of the park. And anything they have, you're allowed to taste for free, and they have a small fee to get in. That might be $8 or $9 or something to get in, and you can spend a nice afternoon there. Now, when the fruits are most abundant, it's in the summertime when it's the hottest, July, August, and September. But I like going during the cooler times of the year, because they're always something to taste down there, whether it be jackfruits or you name it. You'll see stuff you've never seen. Probably one of the most unique parks in the United States. And that concludes my lecture. And if you want to open it up for questions, I know I covered a lot in a short time.
No, you did a great job. And we have a lot of questions. Are you ready?
Sure.
All right. The first question, can you grow the Sapote from a seed out of the fruit you buy, or should you?
You shouldn't, especially the sapotaceous fruits like mamey and sapodilla. They can take 8 to 10 years to fruit if you're lucky. Some people I've seen as early as 6 or 7 years, but I've also seen people that have been growing these for 10 years and don't have any fruit. What happens with genetics of trees is, sadly, the majority of the time that you grow stuff from seed, you'll always get something worse than what you originally started with. And I've seen gigantic trees where people say, wow, look at the size of that thing. It never fruited. I've seen that with avocados. I've seen that with mameys. I've seen that with a lot of fruits. Always safer. You can buy a nice grafted tree at one of the sales for about $35 to $45, and you'll have fruit in a couple years. And you're going to get, it's with being grafted, it's an exceptional recognized fruit, and you don't have to worry about your selection about being a bad fruit. What happens with seedlings, especially sapodilla, it's a crapshoot. You don't know what you're going to get.
Okay, all right. How do you know when the anonas are ripe?
Anonas. Okay, anonas. The way you know anonas is generally they have little points on them. They're called carpels, and when those start spreading, you'll see like a little. They're deep green fruits, but when you start seeing them get like a little creamy color around the little bumps, and the bumps start spreading, they probably coast are ready. Or as soon as you see they start getting a little bit soft, or maybe sometimes they split a little bit, they're ready to go.
Okay, great. Noel, I have more questions, but can you, the last question just came in while I'm asking questions. Can you back your slides up to the local nurseries again? So our attendees can jot those down?
Sure.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
What's the avocado disease called?
The avocado disease. Oh my God! I should know that one. That is I look it up real fast on my phone, but it's
You can always go ahead.
Yeah, it's something that came down, probably brought in pallets that were brought into the port of Louisiana. And it's a disease basically that brings in, and there's a little thrip, I think it's called, a little bug that sucks the life. And basically it's a little bug, but it causes a disease that absolutely wipes them out. And like I said, in northern Florida, there's a variety of, there's a native plant called red bay that's related to avocado. And it's in that family. And it's basically wiped out every single one in the southern United States. It's been a pretty bad one. And hold on, I'm looking for the, one of those. Okay. Hold on, I'm looking through right now. And there's other things. I mean, phytophthora is one, but this one I'm talking about, oh, it's the laurel wilt.
Laurel wilt.
Laurel
Okay.
wilt, yeah.
Great.
That's probably the death knell of most avocados, and it's been a problem. Like I said, mostly in northern central and in northern Florida when they first started, and they thought it was basically going to wipe out the avocado growers down here 5 years ago. And we've been able somehow to, I don't know if it's been that it's warmer here, and maybe the disease, those little bugs don't like the warm climate that we have here compared to other areas, because like red bay grows in North Florida, which is a lot colder. So I'm thinking that, there's something probably to that, or something different about the environment. But in other areas where they've had laurel wilt, it has absolutely devastated, the avocado family. It's the Lauraceae family is what avocado.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
When do you cut the banana stalk? Okay,
bananas should be rounded. They shouldn't have like sharp edges to them. So one thing it's important with bananas is to prop up the bunch. That's one important thing. Once you get a bunch going, I usually use like a 2x4 or a couple 2x4s, or stake them to make sure that that they stay. But once you start seeing the fruit getting more rounded and losing the edges, you shouldn't have any sharp edges along it. That's when they're ready to pick. Let me look at one of the banana slides and see if okay. See how these are actually plantains of huamo. You see how they're more rounded? You don't see, you do see a little sharp edge on a couple of these, but like these bananas, this ice cream that's up on the screen now, those are ready to pick. When they get like that, or sometimes you'll see the first ones, see like all of these, you see how they're nice and round? They should be, but when the bananas are not ripe, you'll see they've got a lot of sharp edges, and they just, you also start seeing, a few fruits will start ripening, or they'll start turning color. And usually when you get a few fruits starting to change color, it's ready to cut.
Okay,
you can
great.
At that time, yep.
Okay. Can the jackfruit grow from the seed from the fruit?
Yes, they can. Jackfruit is one of the exceptions. Jackfruit they do pretty well. And for the most part, it can grow. I've even seen seedlings of jackfruit as early as 3 to 4 years producing fruit. But now one of the problems with seedlings is they tend to grow, excuse me, high, very tall, and you do have to trim them back compared to grafted trees. Grafted trees tend to be more easier to take care of, and they grow mostly out instead of up. But yeah, no, you can certainly grow jackfruit. If you find a really good jackfruit, that one I say, yes, you can. And what you want to do with a lot of these seedlings is you start growing them like jackfruit in a 1 gallon pot, minimum of a 1 gallon pot. And then when the jackfruit seedling, let's say, gets up 12, 14, 20 inches, something like that, then you put it in the ground. But you don't usually want to start the seed in the ground. You start them all in pots. And a little bigger pot, a minimum 1 gallon for any one of these is probably ideal.
Okay, great. Can you eat the entire ripe fruit or only the pods in between of each section of the jackfruit?
No, jackfruit, basically, it's got a stem inside. And let me bring up a picture of jackfruit. Oh, did I pass it up? No, I think I passed it up. Sorry about that. Lost my jackfruit here. Oh, maybe it was in the beginning, was it? Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay. See, you see the white, that little latex in the middle? Okay, that's the core. It's like almost like a pineapple would have. And then what you eat is the carpels, which is everything that's around the seed. And then it's got what they call rag in between the seed, the carpel segments. And in some varieties, you can eat the rag, what they call depending, and sometimes certain times of year you can eat it, but you don't eat the middle part, that like the pit there, like you see in a pineapple. It's not good. But generally, and also with jackfruit, the seeds are very nutritious. You can also there's a lot of recipes online. It's a favorite food in India and in a lot of places. And they also, jackfruit also very popular in Jamaica, Brazil, and in other parts of the Caribbean. And also they're grown big time now in Mexico, even though in Mexico, they don't even know what this fruit is. It's all grown for the US market. So there's huge plantings now in Mexico. And that's most of the fruit you see in Publix or in other different places. They're not Florida grown anymore, even though we have the best cultivars, the best tasting cultivars. So anything you find that are Florida grown, they're all mostly excellent quality fruits. I've seen the fruits from Mexico that you buy in the stores. It's 50% of the time they're dreadful, and then sometimes you do find some good ones. But I've also seen where they bring these fruits in too green, and they're just not a good quality at all. But they're getting better. They used to be even worse, and now I think the majority of the ones from Mexico now are decent, but you still find a stinker once in a while, and that turns off a lot of people if that's the one you've never tasted and that's the one you happen to buy. So buying Florida grown jackfruit will seriously, down here, and you only find them, down in South Florida. You'll find some good ones, and you can eat a lot of it. But I'd say in general, for a jackfruit, it's like a 20-pound jackfruit, maybe you'll get a third to, if you're lucky, get close to a half of the fruit is edible, but generally about a third of the fruit is edible.
Okay.
But pure, all the pulp.
Okay. Another question. Do you try to keep your papayas dwarfed secondary to storms?
Well, it's hard to say dwarf because you really can't trim papayas.
Okay.
Once, it's almost like it's like a palm. If you were to cut it, it would produce side stems, but they're very fragile once that happens. I would say papayas, the best thing to do is, if you have a good one, is once it gets large, you have a spare one, you're already starting to grow your next one. So, and they're easier to grow from seed. Like I said, they only fruit only in a year from seed. So once your tree starts getting a little bit taller than you, get your other one going. And then once that one, if you lose it in a storm, or sometimes they become too tall to pick the fruit. And as they grow taller, the fruits get too small and not really, they start losing the quality, or at least the size. So it's something, you just need ones. And it's also good to grow them in different parts of the yard. Don't grow it in the same place all the time, almost like tomatoes.
Okay. Okay. Do you have recommendations for the best fruits to grow in an understory?
Understory is tough because almost all of these trees like full sun, but you can grow some of these some of these can be grown, in an understory situation. I'd have to think about some good ones. And now I'm just, this is part one. I'll do other parts later on of other fruits like coffee that grows well in understory and cacao but most of these, it's tough to grow in any type of heavy shade. If they get a few hours of sun, they can still grow and produce fruit. But figure that the shadier that you grow a fruit tree or any tree, the more chance of disease that you get, of stunning the trees. And you'll get the shyness where they try to grow away from whatever's over them. And that is a problem, but it's always better, like I said, but and one of the things people do is that they have in an understory situation, they'll trim whatever the other one is just to have just enough sun to keep your new tree growing. But it's a problem to grow them in a deep shade for sure.
Okay. What is the smallest mango tree?
Smallest mango tree, if you're saying, because you can keep a lot of the new Brazil varieties small, but probably the ice cream mango, the ice cream mango is probably one of the smallest. The pina colada is one of the smaller ones. Okay. And I have to see, I'm thinking that's probably the two main ones, but there's a few others that fall under that quote dwarf. Okay. Or smaller ones. There's really no dwarf ones, but ones that they're easier to maintain small would be those two for sure. Okay. And the pina colada. Okay. The question on the avocados, someone is asking, can we grow the Hass avocado in South Florida? You can't grow the actual California ones. They just don't do well. They like the Mediterranean climate, but there is one called Florida Hass. Somebody actually came up with an avocado that's very similar to the Hass. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was actually a Hass seedling and a chance avocado that I haven't tasted, but I've talked to a lot of growers who say it's outstanding, very good. It's similar, and they're actually bigger than the Hass. So look for that one. It's called Florida Hass. Okay. It's not the actual, and like I said, what's nice about it is they're bigger than the California ones. And I've heard they make a really, really good fruit. I'm looking to taste that as soon as and it's a fairly new cultivar, only been around a few years, but you can call like the Broward Breadfruit Council or the Palm Beach and ask them, and they do bring them to the sales. That's probably the easiest place to get them. Or a place like Pine Island or Excalibur, they will probably also have them. Okay. One of our listeners, I live in Mount Dora area, Lake County, Central Florida. Will these fruits grow in my area? Probably not. It is just, you're a little bit too cold up there for most of these things. I mean, I know people that grow mangoes as far up as Ocala, but they have conditions where they almost have greenhouses close by, or they're able to protect. In some cases, understory in colder climates makes sense because the bigger trees will protect some of these cold sensitive trees from, they'll help to insulate them. But generally up there in Mount Dora, it's tough. And you notice I don't have citrus in my Florida, best tree for South Florida, because there's so many diseases, and you can still grow citrus down here, but it's just very difficult because of greening and all. There's a half dozen horrible citrus diseases that are down here, but citrus would probably grow the best up there. You can sometimes get lucky, and if you have grow some of these, but it's pretty difficult, especially like in an open area. The more protected, the closer they are to a house, the better. So the house will kind of protect the trees from cold weather, but generally Mount Dora is it can get in the 20s up there, and that's enough to kill a lot of these trees. So Jaboticaba is probably an exception. Jaboticaba will grow up in Mount Dora, and possibly I can say lychees. I know they grow as far up as Sebring, but that's usually around lakes and stuff where it's a little warmer. But generally, I hate to say, but Mount Dora is not a great place for growing tropical fruit. Okay. All right. A question, how do we get our lychee to produce fruit? Yeah, that's the problem. Move it up to Central Florida. What can I tell you? We've gotten too warm here. Just to give you an idea, I live in North Broward, off Commercial. And this year, there's probably in my neighborhood, I live in an older neighborhood from the 50s. There's probably 12 or 15 huge lychee, they call them lychee or lychee, trees growing in this area where people just have them in their yards. I mean, some of these trees are 80 foot tall. I'm telling you, gigantic, huge trees. I didn't see one fruit set this past year. And usually lychees, they bloom about this time of year, maybe in January, February, and then the fruits are ready to harvest in May, June. I'm telling you, there wasn't one in my neighborhood with even flowered. The same story in Homestead and the farther south you go. We're actually just as warm, believe it or not, as Homestead. And we're actually Homestead can be colder than where we are now in this area, North Fort Lauderdale. Closer to the beach, the better. I live pretty close to I-95, and we just don't get enough chilling hours. And lychees are great fruits. I mean, it's probably one of the top 10. They're outstanding, but you know, the climate change has caused us to be too warm and not get those chilling hours that we need to allow these trees to fruit, to flower, basically, which is a shame. I love them too. I could sit down and eat 3 or 4 pounds of lychees, no problem, but it's becoming more and more difficult to grow them in South Florida.
Understand. What is the best way to stop the papaya wasp from getting to the fruit?
Bagging them. When the fruits are just coming out, just when they're strong enough that they don't fall off when you touch them, you can bag them with like a mesh, almost like stockings. Make a little bag. They're probably good size. You know, papayas do get big, but generally you can bag them. Even sometimes plastic bags work, but not as well. I always like some type of mesh. Even like those bags where the citrus comes in, or the type of bags where onions, you know, they're kind of a netting kind of bag. And they actually sell material to bag fruits, but that's probably the best way to do it.
Okay. Another question, what are some companies that you know that know how to properly prune fruit trees, especially mangoes?
You know, that's a tough one there. I am not aware of anybody right now. I know that there's more of that in Homestead. You'll see more of those people, but up in Broward and Palm Beach, I'm not really aware of anybody that's out there actively doing that. I'm sure there are, you know, arborists, but probably just contact, you know, the arborist societies and ask them for recommendations. But that's always, I've had a lot of people ask me that question, and sadly, I don't have an answer because there just doesn't seem to be a lot of people doing it.
Correct. Okay. This question is, if it tastes edible, it's okay to eat the jackfruit around the pods.
If it tastes, yeah, I mean,
If
it's good, yeah. Generally, what it does is that's the part called the rag that's around the carpels. Yeah, exactly. If it tastes good and it's not too chewy, it is edible. Yes.
Okay. All right. Does the longan need to get cold to fruit?
Not a lot. Longan is more tropical. They really don't need, or very little. It'll easily fruit down in our area, much easier. That's why a lot of, I know a guy that, actually the guy from Going Bananas Nursery, he cut down like 30 big lychee trees because they stopped providing fruit, and he wanted to stop, you know, the maintenance, and he planted longan and other fruits, because longan will produce pretty regular producers.
Okay. Do mangoes require chilling hours?
No,
Okay.
but mangoes, what gets them into fruiting is dry season.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in places where it rains year round, they have a tough time growing mangoes. But when you have a defined dry season like South Florida, that's all you need.
Okay. The last question.
Let me mention though, chilling does help. It'll make them fruit earlier sometimes. Like a lot of times I've got the trees, let's say out west in Coral Springs, Parkland, those trees will flower earlier than the trees on the east side of Broward and Palm Beach.
Okay. All right. The last is not a question. It's just that someone had stated that the Rare Fruit Council is looking for fruit tree vendors for the sale in March 27th, I guess, of 2021. I don't know if that's just to make that announcement or something you may be aware of, but it was just sent to me.
Okay, no, appreciate the info.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. No, that ends all the questions. And this was probably out of all the presentations this year, this was probably the most questions asked. So
good.
A lot of great participation.
Right.
No, I cannot thank you enough. Very informative. I took a lot of notes, and obviously a lot of people took a lot of notes, and we know they're obviously going to be hitting some of those nurseries that you showed us as well. So we thank you very much for the evening, and we look forward to doing this again. All right, great. First of all, I hope everyone enjoyed the presentation tonight. I did, and very, very appreciative of Noel to take the time to do this for us. Next month, we have Drew Toller. Drew is with Beyond Pesticides, and as most of you know, in 2020, we actually established the Green Initiative with Gary Patonki leading that initiative, and we're so appreciative. And a lot of progress has happened this year on that initiative. In fact, just recently, they've completed the analysis of both Oakland Park and Wilton Manors in their parks. So they did the samples. So Drew will be here in January to present the whole initiative and the findings. And so I'm looking forward to that, and I hope you do too. On the last note, this is my last evening to do this. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. I look forward to Paul assuming this for 2021 and on to bigger and better things. As Van had mentioned to you, as chair of the Tropical Plant Fair, out of the abundance of concern for the health, safety, and welfare of our volunteers, our exhibitors, our patrons, and in discussions with the city of Wilton Manors, we have elected to delay the Tropical Plant Fair from March 4th and 5th of 2021 to November 13th, 14th of 2021. And I'm excited because it's going to be in the fall. It's a holiday festive type season. The weather is, we hope, would be beautiful, very festive type weather, cooler and drier. So we're looking forward to that. I will be communicating with the members beginning the first of year. I will be looking for some volunteers and some assistance in leading this. And then likewise, after November, we will go back into our regular standard first weekend of March. So after November, we're going to come right back and be prepared for our for our March, it will be March 5th and 6th of 2022. So with that, the Tropical Plant Fair is alive and well. Our vendors are very excited. They're very receptive to the delay, understanding. They're obviously very excited to get back to Richardson Park. They want to sell to us and we want to buy. So with that, I hope everyone's enjoyed the evening and enjoyed the year. It was an excellent year for the for the Equality Garden Club. I've been really proud of all the neat initiatives that we have implemented this year, even under COVID. Amazing. I applaud the board. I applaud Van Gosselin for his leadership. I've thoroughly enjoyed working with every member, board member, and especially Van and Linda. They have just been an outright joy, as well as my partner, Mario. So with that, I would like to turn it back over to Van for closing remarks. Merry Christmas, stay safe, and I look forward to seeing everyone next year. Take care.
Hello again. Am I on now? Okay, I can't tell. Okay. Thank you, Carl, very much for your very, very
Go
kind
Tiger.
words.
Go Tigers.
Okay. Thanks for your very kind words, and thank you for the work that you've done. You've done a great job this past year doing this programming, and you ended up with a good one. Noel, what a great presentation, very informative, almost too much information. I'm gonna get a crap writing all these notes. Thank God we're recording this. We can go back, any one of us can go back and look at this and get some more information and to be able to digest all that information. I've got a lychee tree in my backyard. We had a prolific crop there a couple of years ago. It was wonderful. We still have some in the freezer, but we haven't seen anything in the last couple of years, and I'm not happy to hear about that. But whatever, right? We'll find out about that one. Anyway, excuse me. The next few weeks we're going to be going through our longest nights of the year. But Hanukkah and Christmas and Kwanzaa, they're all about renewal and hope. And as we enter this holiday season, now we're fully into it, let's remember to be kind and be generous to one another. That's a good time to do it. It's a good time to do it all the time. Given the commercial nature of this season as well, I'd like you to remind you about Amazon Smile. If you designate the Quality Garden Club as its beneficiary, anytime you buy something at no cost to you, they'll cut off a small amount and send it over to us as to help a nonprofit. And every little bit helps. So think of us too while you're thinking of your loved ones and your family, would you? Once again, thanks to Carl. You've been extraordinarily helpful. And if he continues on with the work that he's been doing as programming and takes it into the Tropical Plant Fair, we will have a very successful plant fair this coming November, right? To everybody, have a wonderful holiday. I'll see you next year, I hope, more of you, I hope. Meanwhile, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll bring this meeting to a close. We're now adjourned for the 2020. See you in 2021. Goodbye.